Hello, welcome to Psychopath in Your Life. This is episode number 189, and I'm your host, Dianne Emerson. I'm going to be doing a three-part, love those threes, little trilogy here. I'm going to start off with today talking about the family a little bit as an overview, and then we'll move into pictures of the family. I ran into some pretty good pictures that I've never seen before, so hopefully you'll find them interesting. We're going to be cruising through the pictures at a normal rate, so you might want to get your fingers on that pause button so you can take a look a little bit closer at some of these photos, okay? Then for episode number 2 of this series, I'm going to be talking about my involvement in this case. And then for episode number 3, I will be talking about the cast of characters. I've got quite a cast of people here to take a look at a lot closer. So anyway, so a lot of questions people get are they wonder why they do this. I mean, who would rig a crime with a little kid being murdered? I mean, really. So, well, the simple answer is psychopaths. And the other answers are follow the money. And it all evolves around fear. I'm just using my own assumptions here because no one's ever invited me into these meetings, so I can only assume this is what it's about. But from my experience, the number one thing for psychopaths is control. So you get the fear going, you got a pretty good control of people, right? And I'll be dissecting this as a psyops, and it'll take a couple of episodes to kind of understand all this, because really, it's all about the money. And it's also about the book sales, the celebrity status of the people involved. There's a whole lot of angles. And then also, every year or so, they get to crank it up again. Lots of ad sales, big fat circle jerk. Also today, look at the coding. Back during the case, this was the first big case that was online at a discussion forum, which was being hosted by the Denver Post at the time. And I'll get into what it was like being there in real time in the next episode, but there were a lot of things about the coding that we clearly had no clue about at the time. For example, the ransom amount was $118,000. See the 118 there? So we thought it was strange at the time, and I remember people thought it was the amount of John Ramsey's bonus that he'd gotten. So it was a weird deal with that $118,000. But take a look. Look at the Masonic black and white floor tiles that they had in their kitchen. I think the UK cops, I think your cops over there use a black and white in their uniform somewhere. So another angle is, if everybody gets afraid the cops will bungle a case and think, gee, if they bungled the Ramsey's case, how would I, as John Q. Public, get treated? So that fear angle also enters into this. And I can still remember how mad everybody was at the time about the arriving officers letting all those people trample the scene. Well, it instills more fear. If it happens to your child, no justice for you either. So yeah, it has a whole lot of those elements. And what it does also is, think about it, they schedule it around Christmas. So it's, a highly sexualized deal. So every year at Christmas, they can drag it out. Every year at Christmas, you can be reminded as you tuck your kids into bed, will they wake up alive in the morning? Lots of magazine sales. Every year, new suspects can show up. The experts can all argue back and forth. The cops can argue back and forth. They can leave the force and say, oh, I didn't believe it at the time. And then there was a whole lineup of things. We had a weirdo detective who was on the scene. He was a fan favorite of the Ramseys. They loved that guy, Lou Smith. They loved him. And then we had the rogue cop, Steve Thomas. And then we had the attorney who sued people afterwards, a guy named L. Lynn Wood. It's kind of funny because I never knew his middle name was, I thought his middle name was Lucien, Lucien. And I was kind of tired the other day when I was reading, I thought it said Lucifer. So, anyways, and we had the weirdo pediatrician. So there were a lot of characters in this case. So it's interesting. It's kind of like scripting out of, Casting Central, right? So anyway, so next week I'll have the first time that I've ever really talked publicly about my interest in this case. And I've only been threatened twice in my life. The Ramsey crowd wanted to murder me. They said that. And they wanted to call the FBI on me. I suspect they did call the FBI on me for my role in exposing them. But anyways, they didn't murder me, and I'm still alive, and I'm not in prison by the FBI. So hey, all good, right? And, if they want to get any fast ideas, kind of late. So, because this case was how I started all this research, because nothing added up for me. And I kept thinking, because what are these people? Are they psychopaths, or who are they? So, this was the first forum that I started during this case to try to gather my knowledge as far as how psychopaths operated. So, I have a lot of ties to this case. So, anyhow, it'll be very interesting. So, I have a couple questions I want to ask you real briefly here. Ask yourself this. We have all these controlled oppo people running around trying to trick all of us. Ask yourself this. How smart is someone who signs on to help the spooks knowing you are also being poisoned? I think a lot of these people think they're going to get helped out in the end, and I think they just don't understand how psychopaths operate, because they'll be dusted, okay? But anyway, so how smart are you to get on board with somebody who's actually, chemtrails, the water, the food? And how smart are the people in charge? They're destroying the planet with the chemtrails, toxic food for everybody, toxic water for them also. It doesn't sound that smart to me. I mean, really, you would think that they would cook up a better plan than, while they're poisoning us, they're poisoning themselves. So anyway, so we're on to an adventure here. So check out the graphics and the pictures and enjoy the show, and I will look forward to joining you in the comments. Goodbye for now. Be safe out there.